Oh, well, as Burns and Steinbeck said, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. And so, what I wanted to talk a little bit about today is the overall plan that we had for the Colonial unit and how it actually turned out. We attempted to do a lot with this unit, and unfortunately there were a couple problems, which I'll talk about briefly. Subtext, which I've used a couple times now and works very well for me, had an issue where going through the old subtext count I used, where I had enriched the book, and moving to the students, the connection was lost and information that I had put into the book was lost. And I used it as a teaching point or an opportunity for the children. So what we were able to do was teach the book in a more old school way, having class discussion as opposed to virtual discussion. Granted, I would prefer to have the virtual discussion as each student has a chance to respond to every question and every point that I put in. So basically the way it would have worked is that throughout the book I had laid about 100, 150 different questions, quizzes, enrichment that is either picture or definition or website enrichment, so when they reach a certain point they had to read something else, watch a video, and then respond to it. So what I did instead was what we would have done in the past when you're doing a basic novel study, and that is when we reached those points in class during the quizzes, we would talk about those in the same way. Maybe I'd show some of that up on the smartboard. It severely lengthens the unit that way. It's actually shorter, easier, and from what I've found based on the results of the assessments given, the students tend to master the material better when it's tailored for them individually in the subtext account as opposed to in the class discussions, though not always across the board. Some students actually enjoy the discussion time more. This lengthened the unit, and unfortunately because of snow days and some other problems, we were not able to do all of the integration we wanted. We still did some. We still had games played that were colonial in nature. We still had some a discussion in science and music about colonial art and colonial science. However, the idea that we had of having the students dye cloth and make clothing, that was scrapped. I had to scrap my colonial day. That would have taken place right before spring break. However, we just did not have the time after all of the snow days, and they didn't get to saw their logs this year as they had in years past, and they didn't get to plow their fields and determine their acreage that were needed to keep each member of the family alive. So to go into some of what we plan to do, I'd like for you to look through what's below. It'll go through the unit piece by piece. I'm discussing more my overall philosophy behind the different parts that I taught and then the way I taught them, why we did a novel study as opposed to independent reading throughout this, even though students in my class are independently reading and presenting on that reading constantly. And so as you go through that, maybe you can see exactly what we did and why. Coming up next will be our poetry unit, and I can't wait to share with you how that goes. It'll last about a month.